One of the things I discovered is once you start drawing something, you really do need to look at it. You really do need to understand how it works. And you also need to throw away all of your assumptions about it, because we look at something and we think we understand it. But once you start to draw it, and I tended to look more at plants and animals, and once you start drawing them, you understand the structures. It's really relevant. It isn't just a conceit. It isn't just about the hand. It's about the eye and the understanding that comes from drawing it, and you'll never get that out of a mechanical system. I grew up in an apartment in Brooklyn, these wonderful parks where you would go out and experience nature. That was my public space. So I've always been interested in the environment. I've always been interested in people and how they use public spaces. And now, of course, I'm much more interested in ecology. So communities of plants and animals. I'm interested in green technology, so not being disruptive. I'm very interested in infrastructure and using that in a more sensible way. And that's why the Ellis Creek sewer treatment facility is also a water recycling facility. It's also wildlife habitat. Some people call it a wildlife sanctuary. It's also a public wetlands park that has more than 3 miles of trails. And so I'm very interested in these multifunctional projects. How much can you put into them? How much can you layer onto them? And then there's always the truth of the specific place. Because I use only organic forms, the projects still come out very different than an engineering project. And some of the people who first started walking the paths at Ellis Creek said to me how wonderful the paths were, that it was the first time they weren't walking rectangles. Even though you can't really see the figure of the mouse from the ground, you can intuit it by walking it. And that's what people understand from walking that site, is that it just feels different in their body as they're moving through it. You can take up a concrete parking lot or an asphalt parking lot, and if the seeds are in the ground and the water elevations are correct, the wetland will return. If you try to put a wetland where it's never been, it will not succeed. This is why research is so important in understanding what the place is and what wants to live there. So there are many more points of view that need to be considered, not just my own personal desires as an artist, but also what's going to work for all those people. What's going to work for the animals, for the plants, what's going to work for the users of the site, of which there are many. Anytime you design a public space, you're dealing with all kinds of people and all kinds of desires, not just one. It's not a simple straight line process. It's very much a back and forth. And that's why I say design and not art. As an artist, I can design the perfect project, the project that I consider is perfect. On the other hand, all of the users would not consider that the perfect project because they have other concerns and other issues. And so you need to take all of those things into account and try at least to make everybody happy. It was the first place where I actually put these two pieces together, the large-scale infrastructure and the ecological communities, and created a public space that was actually sculptural. And even though it looked different, and even though it looked crazy, I had enough credibility when I would make the presentations because I had gone to architecture school. And then I also had the other component. I understood the ecological community aspect of it, that this was a municipal flood basin. Usually there are chain link fences around them. And here people were out on the paths looking at turtles. I consider science and art parallel explorations, that in a way we're like inchworms. We're out on a twig, feeling around, testing the air. Where do we go from here? What can we learn? And you begin to look at these things and you begin to discover the world. And I think that's what scientists do, and I think that's what artists do. And what is the deep truth? When you watch in a rainstorm and you watch the raindrops hit the window, they actually move in the pattern of a snake. And so there are several deep truths going on at once. Of course, Native Americans have always considered the snake a symbol for water, but maybe they were just looking at the raindrop and the way it flows. And those are the kinds of things that interest me about science. Not textbook science, but observational science. I don't want to do the kind of art that creates a big stir and people hate. I want to do the kind of art that people love, because I want it to be there 50 years and 100 years from now. The beauty is about the process. It's not about what the eye sees. It's about how you act in the world. I don't know any engineers that think about wildlife. I don't know any engineers that think about plants. I don't know too many engineers that think about, water purification in terms of what plant will remove what metal. I do. And because there isn't a whole lot of information out there, you have to learn it as you go. And you also have to do a certain amount of experimentation, but you do need to get it right in these big projects. And so far I've been very lucky, because I'm always working on the cutting edge of what is known and what is just hoped for.